everybody, I'm Elise from the blog LePetitSaintCrochet.com, and today I'm really excited to be sharing something super awesome with you guys. So if you've ever wanted to knit toys or you are a toy knitter, I have the ultimate knitting toy resource guide for you. There we go. This ultimate knitting toys resource guide is disguised as an ordinary, although adorable pattern book. Let me tell you, this book is a wealth of information. I'm going to give you all the details why you're going to want this book, even if you never plan on knitting one of the patterns from this. This is little Albert Owl. He is from this book. I think you're going to want to knit one of these toys from this book, but even if you don't, this is an incredible resource for knitting toys. I can't wait to share all the details with you. As always, I will leave links for all of the resources in the description box below. You can always head to the blog post because they will all be in there, as well as a Pinterest pin if you want to save this for later, but all of the resources are going to be down below for you. When I first bought this book, I was expecting to find adorable patterns, which I did. There's over 40 of them in here, many different animals and all different types of clothing. It is really beautiful, but what I wasn't expecting was to find such an incredible resource. So there's two sections in this book that I really feel like really make this book the actual resource that it is. There's an abbreviation section, which sounds kind of weird that could be a great resource, but it really is, and I'm going to go into more detail about that. But there's also the technique section, and that is actually 14 pages long, and there's so much good stuff in that part. I'm going to go into that more in a minute, but I want to talk a little bit about knitting toys. So for those of you who have crocheted toys, there's a little bit of a learning curve with knitting toys, even if you are already a knitter. There are different things that you have to do for knitting toys that you don't need to do with crocheting toys. The biggest one is seaming. A lot of people get stuck on the seaming part of knitting toys, and that can be kind of discouraging. And what I mean by seaming is that some toys, this one is included, they are knit flat and then you seam them together. Whereas most crocheted amigurumi, you knit in the round, starting with a magic ring. You're always crocheting in the round. Now you can also knit in the round. This little sweater and his little pants are knit in the round, but that requires using double point needles. Okay, that was a bug. Why do I have bugs in here? If you're knitting in the round, especially if it is a small piece, you are going to need to learn how to use double point needles. With crocheting, there's a limited way to be able to increase or decrease, but with knitting, there are so many different ways to increase or decrease because of the way you want your stitches to slant, or if you want an opening, or there are just so many different things that you have to do. So there's a much steeper learning curve, but this book is really, really good about laying a lot of this out there and helping you, especially with those tricky parts. And I get questions about those tricky parts all the time. So now, if you ask me a tricky question, I'm probably going to recommend this book as a fantastic resource. Oops, well, Albert fell over. Sit up, Albert. There are 43 different abbreviations listed in this book, and you may be wondering, why does an abbreviation matter? So the abbreviations are just the symbols that represent what the stitch is in your pattern. But what's really great about this is that it doesn't just have the abbreviation SSK and then just write slip, slip, knit. It actually explains how to do that. And for me, I do enjoy watching how to do something, but sometimes I actually need to read it. And if I can read it, I can understand it a lot better. And I really like having a hard copy resource for a lot of those things because it's a reference that you can go back to. And if you're just trying to always look up tutorials on YouTube, which I think is a great idea, but sometimes that can get really laborious and it can be frustrating because sometimes you can't find that video that you saw and that you liked, or you have to wade through so much information. And one thing that I really like about printed books is that a publisher and an editor have gone through to make sure that there aren't mistakes. Now, that's not to say that there aren't mistakes in some pattern books, because there are. I haven't found any in this one yet, but what I really like about it is that someone has actually gone through and looked through to make sure that there aren't mistakes. This is a fantastic resource. I'm going to say that over and over again. I do apologize, but I cannot get over how great this book is as a knitting toys resource. The technique section of this book is 14 pages long, and it is worth the entire price of this book. So if you are interested in learning anything about seaming, pinning, stuffing, mattress seaming, I get that question all the time. She has not just the written explanation for how to do mattress seaming, but she has photos. She has vertical and horizontal mattress seaming, which, oh my goodness. And there's also half mattress seam, which I had never heard of before, but it's the technique that she uses to attach parts of the body, or attach the half mattress stitch is the technique that she uses to add pieces like the arms. Some of the animals have beaks. He has a little beak, or the ears or the legs onto the body parts. And I am telling you right now that it is wonderful. I love having it all together in one place, even if you're never going to make these patterns, but I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to want to make these patterns too. So let's go ahead and talk about the patterns, because that's just a fun part too. So there are 13 different patterns in here. There's a dog and a cat and a pig, which you can find in a lot of other pattern books, but there's a horse and he is adorable. There's obviously the little owl and he is so cute. There's a hedgehog. There is a squirrel that I am definitely going to make. There are so many cute little animals, and the great thing is they all have this amazing wardrobe, and all of the wardrobe pieces fit with all the animals. So the way it's kind of broken down is that there is the body part section. So all the animals are knit. Their bodies are exactly the same. There's a little bit of difference in just the color work, if you want to make the chest a different color, or if you want to make the feet a little bit different, if you want to make the feet have a colored bottom, or if you want it to be all one color. That's really the only difference. So for the bodies, they're exactly the same as far as dimensions and stitches are concerned, but the heads are what differ for the different animals. So all of the clothes for all of the animals fit each and every one of the toys. And I am telling you, that is one of the things that I love most about this book, is that the clothing in here is absolutely to die for. It is beautiful. They are absolutely gorgeous. I would love to make these for myself. There are shoes. There are French knickers for the little girls. They're so beautiful. There's color work. There's cables. There's everything you can think of. It is just so beautiful. I can't get over the gorgeous wardrobe for all of these animals. I really think that it is the second best thing about this book. The first being the resources, the techniques, and the abbreviation section, but the wardrobe is so incredibly beautiful. I've never seen the level of detail of knitted toy clothing than in this book before. You know, I love lots of knitted toys, and many of them come with beautiful clothing, but this one really takes the cake. This one really is a step above. It has pushed my knitting skills, and I have learned so much. I challenged myself in new and exciting ways, and that is really fun, because now I know that I'm a better knitter after making Little Albert here. So to knit Little Albert, I used two of my new favorite yarns, which are the Cascade 220 Superwash Sport and the Cascade Heritage. So for the bodies, you use the sport weight yarn, and it is really beautiful. It is really soft, and it comes in so many different colors. And one of the things that I really like about this yarn is that it's actually pretty affordable. The Heritage is what you use to knit the clothing with. It is a sock weight yarn, so it's really thin. I had never worked with sock weight yarn before, but it's so squishy and beautiful and soft, and I really loved working with both of them. They're not splitty. I love yarns that aren't splitty, so it was really easy to work with. Oh, it's cutting my head off. Okay, just to be fair, I do have two cons, and that's just because there's no perfect pattern, there's no perfect book, but I want you to be aware of it before you go into this. So not only are you going to need two separate weights of yarn, you are also going to need several different size needles, and that can get pricey if you haven't already built up your collection of knitting needles. You are going to need flat needles, and you are going to need double points. Now the book is really good about listing everything you're going to need, so that's great, but just know going into it, if you buy this and you expect to only have to buy one set of knitting needles, I hate to tell you, that's not going to be the case, because you are changing sizes, you are going from flat knitting to in the round, so you need to keep that in mind when you decide to work on this book. And the second thing that I didn't really like about it is I typically like a pattern that you know every single round what your stitch count should be. And this one does give you stitch counts here and there, and I'm probably not being exactly fair. It is in there, but I want it for every single round. Now, if the stitch count doesn't change, I don't mind that it is not placed in parentheses at the end of the pattern, but I really like it if there's a change, and I know I can do the math myself and figure out how many stitches should I have. But for me, I am not an expert knitter, so for me, I really like to be able to know that I've got the right amount of stitches, because that's where I go wrong when I am knitting. It's when you've got increases or decreases, and somehow I've either picked up stitch somewhere or I've dropped a stitch, and it just helps to keep me on track if I know that I know that I know that I have the correct number of stitches there. Those are the two things that I want you to be aware of before you buy the book and invest in this resource. I think you're really going to like the patterns that are in this book. They are beautiful. They are delightful. The book in and of itself is beautiful, and I'm a big fan of that. There are beautiful watercolor flowers that decorate the pages, and I just think that that is such a beautiful touch. I love having something pretty to look at, and I think you're really going to like it, but be forewarned, there are a couple of cons that I wanted you to be aware of. As always, thank you so very much for stopping by the Le Petite Saint Crochet YouTube channel today. I would really appreciate it if you hit that like button and that subscribe button. Please share this video with anyone that you think might be interested in it. And I just wanted to give you a big thank you, a big hug. I appreciate you all so very much for spending a little bit of time with me today. And as always, I would love to hear from you. Leave your comments. Have you ever knitted any toys from this book? Are you interested in doing it? Give me ideas for future videos. That is so helpful to me. I can't even tell you. And I look forward to hearing from you. And I've got a few other videos that you might be interested in as well. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Happy stitching!